This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, an open source non-ICO crypto project powered by community. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. That's TUSC.network. The Rob McNealy program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Okay, folks, I am real excited today. I have a guest that I've been a big fanboy of for a long time, and that is Tom Gresham. He is the host of the Gun Talk radio show. He has been a gun rights activist and gun enthusiast for decades. I've only been listening to him for a few years, but his wisdom is amazing. So, Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you bet. This is fun. Anytime we get to talk about guns and what's going on from the political standpoint. And it's crazy right now what's going on over the last, 3-4 weeks with the whole coronavirus thing?
Yeah, a lot of things are happening because of that. And I wanted to get your kind of, take on what you're talking to people about and what you're hearing on the streets, because I got a much smaller, network in this space than you do. But it's certainly interesting that before the corona pandemic, it seemed to me that there's definitely been a war on guns, especially in states like Virginia and California, where people are really going out there and trying to destroy liberty. What effect has the corona pandemic had on the states that are trying to go after gun rights?
All right, maybe just a little bit of background there, because I've been doing this for right about 50 years. So fighting for gun rights and talking about it and everything else. The key thing to understand is that they always are after your rights. This is not new. It's been there 25 years ago and 50 years ago. They always have wanted to end private sale of guns. They want to end private ownership of guns. They really, truly do think only the government should own guns. So when you start with that background, you realize what they're actually doing now. And so under the coronavirus pandemic, we have a number of states who use that as an excuse to shut down gun stores, stop all sales of guns in their state. Well, they can't do that legally, but they said, why not? Let's give it a shot. So what happened was the gun rights groups, owner groups, all got together. Individually, they're taking action, but also they're taking action together. For instance, in California, you have 4 different gun rights groups working together: Second Amendment Foundation, NRA, Firearms Policy Coalition, and one of the California state groups, all working together. But NRA has been suing, Second Amendment Foundation has been suing. An unsung group in this that people don't know a lot about, but it's actually one of the most effective groups, is the National Shooting Sports Foundation. That's the group that puts on the SHOT Show. And they have entree into the White House and to various places. And honestly, they're the ones who made one of the biggest changes about 2 weeks ago, where now the Department of Homeland Security has listed gun stores and shooting ranges as essential businesses under the law enforcement umbrella. And so that gave cover for a number of governors who were looking at a lawsuit they were going to lose. We're suing them. They said, okay, well, we'll just say we're going to follow the federal guidelines, and that's our cover, our political cover on the thing. So in most states, we've been able to get the gun stores opened up again. New Jersey was difficult. Massachusetts has done a flip-flop like 4 times now maybe. And California is problematic, as California always is, and that's just going to take more legal action there. But we're working on it.
Well, it's good that I think that in this case, the president and the Department of Homeland Security made the right call. One of the things that I'm seeing with this pandemic, and one of the things that a lot of people I know in the prepper space are kind of concerned about, and it looks like it's going to go that direction, is that there may be an increased crime, at least in certain jurisdictions, combined from the facts that many police departments are coming down with, a lot of the officers are, becoming infected. I'm originally from Detroit. Right now, I think almost 25% of the Detroit police force is out on quarantine because of COVID. Right. You have cities, my city too, Salt Lake City, where I am, California, Philadelphia, have already listed all the crimes they're not going to come and send a cop for, which to me, I'm not a criminologist, right? I'm not one of those guys that have all the statistics, but it seems to me that when you have on one hand, you have the cops not coming to calls for 9/11, you have cops that are sick, and you combine that with releasing a bunch of prisoners, even if they're low risk prisoners, it seems to me you're going to have an increase in crime. Anecdotally, I have a friend of mine in New York City right now, lives in a good neighborhood in New York City. He said he's been there 5 years. He's put one of our community members, and we were talking about this yesterday morning. He told me this, Tom. He said, look, I asked him, I go, what are you seeing on the ground? Because I don't trust anything I'm seeing anywhere else. I want to hear from people that are there.
Sure.
And this is what he said. He said, look, he goes, there's been 8 armed robberies and 1 home invasion in my neighborhood in the last 2 weeks. That's never happened in the 5 years I've been here. So to me, Tom, it seems like having gun stores open seems to be the thing that people are going to have to learn to defend themselves, or at least have the tools available to defend themselves going forward.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know.
It's a great point, and frankly, it's why we're watching this rush of people going to the gun stores and buying guns and buying ammo. And I've had a couple of gun stores, people who are in the business, tell me that 90 to 95% of the people buying guns right now are first-time gun buyers. Imagine that. These are people who do not own a firearm. And all of a sudden they have decided out of the blue to go buy a gun. Well, why are they doing that? It goes back to what you were just saying, but also it's just kind of this general sense of unease. It doesn't take a lot for people to get rid of that bubble, artificial bubble, that they choose to put themselves in, where they can pretend that they're safe. Oh, we don't need guns. We have the police. We have this. We don't have to worry about it. Part of that is, well, they also say, well, you guys are crazy for thinking that you need a gun for self-defense. We have the police. We saw the same thing happen in 2005 with Hurricane Katrina. The world, and especially the nation, watched on video as all semblance of civilization went away. There were no police. There were no police. There was only brute force. That's what you were left with. And you were left to survive or not survive on the basis of what you could keep or protect yourself with. And people even in Detroit or Seattle or Salt Lake City looked at that and went, wow, honey, if that happened here, we don't have any way to protect ourselves. So people went out and bought guns all over the country. Same thing's happening right now. They have come to grips with the realization that they really are on their own. This is not something new. We've always known this. This is always true. The police will be there when they can. Sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes. No matter what it is, it's too late. 2 minutes is too late. Just this morning, we had a story, I believe it was out of Knoxville, it's out of Tennessee, where 3 women were stabbed to death in a convenience store. A guy goes in there and kills 3 women, stabs them to death. The police arrived in 2 minutes, a fabulous response time. Too late for those women. My whole deal is really simple. When you put your pants on in the morning, put on a gun. I wear a gun in my house all the time. I have a gun on all the time. Why is that? Because I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm competent and I practice. And people, if they're new gun owners, we'll talk about that in a second, what you should do if you just bought a gun. But the reality is, you're responsible for your own safety. You are your own first responder.
I couldn't agree with that more. Interestingly enough, I'm a pretty moderate guy. I'm very conservative on things like guns and the economy, and I'm very fiscally conservative. But I still have a lot of friends that are, liberals, straight up liberals. So I'm not even going to hide it. Now, I don't hate liberals because they lean a different way than I do. Like, I try to get along with everybody. In the last week and a half, I've had 4 phone calls from friends. 3 of them were asking me about their first gun purchase. The 4th person was asking where they can find emergency food. It's like, and of course I'm the guy they call, but, and I always like to play with people. I'm like, I thought you weren't a big gun guy. And they're like, I'm not a big gun guy, but in their backpedaling, and I love my friends, don't get me wrong. And I do, and trust me, I give them a little crap up front, but I do absolutely everything that I can to give them good advice and then, help them get along and do it safely. So I guess that's a good segue. What would you recommend recommend to all these new gun owners, especially these liberal gun owners that have never really been around guns for? What would you recommend they do first thing after they get their gun?
Well, first of all, I don't make any distinction between conservatives and liberals. I just don't care. It's truly a non-starter for me. And I know it's a fun thing to talk about those liberals or those conservatives, but when you come to gun rights, all I care about is you're either with us or against us. And I don't care if you're the super leftiest, and there are a lot of leftists and liberals who are really pretty good on the Second Amendment because they believe in the Bill of Rights. They protect all the other rights, and they back the Second Amendment. But to your question, I guess a couple of things. If you are a first-time gun buyer, go to, because you can't go to a lot of shooting ranges right now and can't get instruction. But there are a lot of places you can go online and get some instruction. We just put up a brand new video on our YouTube channel. Go to Gun Talk Media on YouTube, and we're calling it the 3-minute EDC, 3-minute everyday carry. It's a tip we're going to do. It's 3 minutes. This one's on basically how to load and unload a revolver. We're going to be doing the same thing with a lot of other things. But here's the other thing. If you're a gun owner, and there are a lot of gun owners who are watching this right now, this is our opportunity to once again show that we're the responsible ones out there. All of us have friends who may not be into guns. You may know people who are first-time gun owners. And if you don't, maybe you have this extended group of Facebook people or even church members, and you can make an offer, hey, I can help. And even if you can't go see them with the social distancing, you can do a FaceTime chat, a Zoom connection, and say, okay, that pistol you just bought, put it on the table in the box. And all right, we're going to walk through this. Open up the box. There's a pamphlet in there. The gun maker spent a lot of money and a lot of time on the owner's manual. Read every page in your owner's manual. You will learn a lot. Actually, you'll end up knowing more than a lot of gun owners do. And then let's talk about, we're going to take it out of the box, and we're going to make sure it's unloaded. You're going to show me on your camera, and we as gun owners can walk them through. How do you take out a magazine? How do you work a slide? How do you, when you pick up your gun, here's your tip for the day. To grab a gun, make a gun. That is, you make a finger gun, right? And then you pick up the gun with your finger gun. Now your finger is straight along the side of the gun. It's a safe way to teach people to pick up guns and not wrap their finger inside the trigger the way that people tend to do. So we as gun owners can actually help people be safe with how they handle their gun. Let's talk about the 4 rules of gun safety. We'll talk about muzzle discipline. We'll talk about how you work a slide, keep your finger off the trigger. We can help these people out. And then when we can all get back together, you just have a standing offer. When we can do this, I'll take you out to the range and I will teach you some things, and we'll get you some level of comfort and familiarity. We may have 1 million or 2 million or who knows how many new gun owners who some of them could be persuaded to come to the side of the Second Amendment. You're not going to make them conservative, but we don't need them to be conservative. We just need them to vote on the basis of the Second Amendment, and I truly don't care where they are on any other issues. It's not my thing.
Well, I agree. I'm glad that you bring that up, because I'm basically a one-issue voter anymore on the Second Amendment, and I look at it pretty straightforward. If you're going to be bad on the Second Amendment, you're probably not going to be good on any of the other ones either.
Yep.
And that goes for conservatives too. I tell people all the time, you are not entitled to my vote ever when it comes to politicians. And I think that's important to stress that is, if there's no good politicians that don't like certain rights. Either you like the rights or you don't. You may not like what people do with those rights. That's a different story, I think. But I think it's important that, we point out that, you can be more liberal in some ways and still be a big defender of your person, your right to self-defense. And I think a lot of people miss the fact that ultimately everybody is conservative when it comes to their own life. So typically about this, sometimes they don't realize it until it's too late to do something about it. And I see that's interesting. I was discussing on social media recently with one of my more liberal Facebook friends who was in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked that she must be suicidal, because her position, I posted an article about why people should get a gun. And this is like 3-4 weeks ago, before people were freaking out. And my position was like, get it while you can get it now, because it's going to be a lot harder in a few weeks to get anything, which is so far proven to be correct.
Correct.
And she's like, well, why do I need a gun? I go, well, there's a good chance that, you know, the crime is going to go up around you and everywhere else. And she's like, well, if I need a gun to defend myself, then I don't really want to live on this planet. And I said, bless your heart, but I hope you don't change your mind when it's too late to go back from that decision.
Yeah, you know,
and that's been interesting.
One of the things I tell people, I say, look, particularly if you're a parent, you don't have that choice anymore. You don't have the choice to say, well, I'll just die rather than defend myself. Because number one, if you're protecting your child, then you need a tool to do that. You need the skills to do that. But more than that, even if you're by yourself, if you die, you traumatize that child. What a selfish thing to do, to say, I'm willing to die for this and traumatize my children forever because I wouldn't take the simple steps to get protection, to learn how to use a gun. I describe a gun as a parachute. It's the thing you use when every other thing has failed. You know, you've run out of gas, the wing's on fire, the engine's on fire, you're crashing, you jump out with your parachute. In this case, we try to do everything we can to not use a gun. I mean, we work hard at it. You know, avoidance, evasion, awareness, you know, de-escalation, all the other things we can do. Because any day I don't have to use my gun is a great day. And I hope that I end up dying at the age of 142, never having used my gun. But having said that, I also know that stuff happens. I mean, we have fire extinguishers in our house. I didn't plan to ever have a fire. I did. Okay. It's the thing you use to control the situation until help gets there. Think of the fire extinguisher analogy. It's not there to put out a house fire. It's to try to control it until the fire department gets there. Same thing with a gun. And you know, one of the things that people, and you know this, but a lot of people don't know in the public, is that the police legally have no duty to protect anyone. The courts have ruled over and over that they're not responsible for you, and they don't have a legal duty to even come. Or if they come, they can sit there and watch you get injured, and they don't have a legal responsibility to protect you.
Well, that came up down in Florida, right? Down at Sandy Hook, right? The resource officer waited on the outside of the building,
right,
during that environment, or during that mass shooting. And so, and you know, and it's funny because I followed that a little bit, but a lot of the courts basically said there's nothing we can do against him, and then they, you know, worked really hard because of the public outrage about it. But ultimately, they're not legally obligated to defend you.
No,
and I was a first responder. I was been an EMT and a firefighter, and I've worked around law enforcement many years, and I can tell you, it's not a bad thing, but even EMTs and firefighters are told, save yourself first. Don't put yourself in danger. That's typically the mantra, right? So I think it's that personal responsibility. No one's going to care about your life more than you. Let's be honest.
Well, to your point, if the police and the firemen and EMTs are told, save your life first, that's pretty good advice for all of us. Save your life first. Don't depend on anybody else. And don't you love the folks who say, well, you know, I would never have a gun in my home. I go, really? Okay. So if somebody breaks in, who are you going to call? Well, I'm going to call the police. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. I thought you just said you would never have a gun in your home. Where do you think the police are going to come in? They're going to come in with a gun. It makes no sense whatsoever. You're okay with somebody having a gun, but only if they wear a certain kind of clothing. Only if they're wearing a uniform.
And have a shiny little badge, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's, you know, which we don't even have to get into the whole who's more competent. You know, it very well may be the woman who's walking down the street is more competent than about 98% of the police officers out there. And that's no knock on the cops. They get what they get in way of training. But most of them are not gun people. Most of them don't train on their own. Most of them won't spend the money on ammo. And so they get minimal training with very minimal remedial recurrent training. And they're just simply not very good. So once again, do you really want to trust your life to that? But this whole coronavirus pandemic has been interesting. And as I say, there may be an opportunity here at the end of it for us to pick up some people in the gun world and gun culture, if you will, but only if we reach out to them and we're not engaging in the, well, where have you been all along? You know, so, you know, and we're making fun of them. There's an addictive attraction for putting people down, especially on the internet. And, you know, rather than do that, we should be looking at this and going, wow, what a golden opportunity. We could pick up 1 million votes. With 1 million votes, we win. I mean, on a national basis, with 1 million votes, you win.
Well, it was interesting. One of the people that asked me about advice is someone who's actually in New York City, and he's an attorney of all things. And I said, look, I don't know your laws in New York City, but I said it's really hard to get a gun at all right now because they're everywhere. Right. I know is sold out of most inventory right now. But I tried to help him out, gave him some suggestions on what he could do and where he could go. But I think you're right. I think, unfortunately, it's part of the human kind of, you know, programming that we have, that people don't think about those things till it's right in their lap. Right now, there's somewhere between 200 and 600 people a day dying in New York City from COVID right now. I just looked at the numbers, the raw numbers from New York City. That's what the numbers are looking for. It looked like 400 people died from COVID since yesterday, which is sad and scary. And I can't imagine what it would be like if I was living there now, personally. Because I know there is going to be unrest. People just, I think when you get people in a group or, you know, a lot of people are in a mass and they live close to each other, like in a big city like New York City, people just get scared and they get restless and they go crazy, I think. Right. So I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you about and see if you've heard anything about this is, what do you see is happening to the supply chain? And I don't just mean about the FOMOing, the fear of missing out, and the panic buying or the last minute buying. I've heard some rumors that because China has been shut down for so long, that could start impacting the U.S. gun manufacturing industry as a whole. Have you heard anything about that at all in your circles?
I really haven't. And again, remember, we've been through these crushes before. When Obama was elected, when it looked like Hillary was going to be elected, we have a run on guns. There was, what was it, 8 years ago, 10 years ago now? You couldn't find guns, you couldn't find ammo. There's just nothing there. That's going to happen again. That's happening right now. The gun makers are, especially the ammo makers, are not going to gear up to take care of this demand because they know it will go away. And when it goes away, it drops off the end of the table. It's just gone. And so they're not going to hire more people. They're not going to add shifts. Just not going to happen. So what's out there is out there. There's enough ammo in the pipeline to take care of all of our shooting for the next 10 years, but not if you buy your next 10 years worth of ammo right now, all at once. And that's what's going on. I guess my takeaway is what I've been telling people on Gun Talk Radio for years now is in investing, they have a thing called dollar cost averaging, which means buy stock every month. Whether it's up, whether it's down, just every month you're buying a little bit. We should do the same thing with ammunition. Ammo 6 months ago was so cheap, it was like they were giving away ammo. I mean, you could buy it for nothing and it was available everywhere. When this whole nonsense is over, you know, anybody can find $10 a week, okay? That's one box of 9mm ammo. Anybody can find $10 a week. Buy a box of ammo a week. At the end of a year or 2 years, you have 2 or 3 shelves full of ammo. This is not your shooting ammo. This is the next time the world loses its mind ammo. And then you can just, you know, do shooting. But, you know, this will all come back. This will all get back to normal. The gun makers are making guns. There's going to be plenty of guns for everybody. Actually, I've heard of gun people saying, I'm digging around in my safe. I'm selling guns right now. Prices are up. I put them in the gun stores on consignment. I'm going to make some money. If you're a real gun person, you don't have really a need to go out and buy guns at inflated prices right now. So just take a deep breath, sit back, come middle of the summer, this will all be over. And if you went out and bought several guns at inflated prices, if you have to sell them, you're going to take a beating on them.
I think that's really good advice. Tom, I do appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find out about you and where can they check out your website?
Well, several different ways to go. Guntalk.com gives the home base for everything. We have videos on YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. Just look for Gun Talk everywhere. We have thousands of those. We have the Guns and Gear television show, which runs on the Sportsman channel. And then, of course, the Gun Talk radio show is available in podcast. It's the #2 all-time podcast in the hobby category, according to Apple. So those are the basic ones. And then we actually have a smartphone app that's very cool, Gun Dealio. It gives you great deals on guns and ammo. If you go to gundealio.com, you can get it for your iPhone or your Android. So a lot of ways to keep up.
Tom Gresham, thank you so much. I've really appreciated it today.
Appreciate it, Rob. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Rob McNealy program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcnealy.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.